What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Nate and Steve here from Out of the Basement. Today on the show, we are reviewing Cult of Chucky. This is the latest installment of the Child's Play franchise, picking up right where Curse of Chucky left off. And it just came out today. It's on Netflix, although if you're checking it out on Netflix, it is the R-rated version and also does not have the end credit scene, which is kind of a bummer. So we were going to watch it on Netflix, but then I was like, we need the full experience.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
got that digital rental, which is fine. I'll support it. And I'm glad I did because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this movie.
I kind of was like, oh, Nate, no, let's just do the Netflix version because, just in case it was bad.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from this movie, but...
Yeah, I had my expectations pretty low, even though I really like Curse of Chucky, but for me, I thought Cult was going to bring in the more silly parts of the Child's Play franchise, like Seed and Bride, but it really doesn't do that, thankfully. I'm not a huge fan of those Child's Play movies, but I know you enjoy them quite a bit, though.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting dynamic we have here, where I more so prefer the original Child's Play movies and Curse, and you like them all.
Yeah, I mean, I like them all. I mean, out of Bride and Seed, I think Bride is definitely the superior movie, but Seed is just fun. I think it's just a funny movie. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. So this movie takes place 4 years after Curse, with Nika trapped in an insane asylum. She's sort of has been tricked in a way into believing that Chucky was a figment of her imagination, and that she was the one that actually killed her family, which is obviously not the case. We saw Curse of Chucky, so let's just jump right into it. We're going to go spoiler-free here right at the beginning, and then we'll talk a little bit of spoilers, not a whole lot. We're going to try and keep this brief. So first off, with our likes, we really thought that the kills in the movie and the gore were just awesome. For me, I felt like Curse of Chucky definitely held back a lot of the gore and violence. There was still some, but this movie there was a lot more. Specifically, like, some people getting their heads crushed, someone getting maybe a drill through the back of their head and it comes out through their eyeball. Really enjoyed those moments of gore. Definitely liked those kills. And the acting was surprisingly well, along with the writing of the movie. I felt like this was a worthy sequel.
Yeah.
I thought, we agreed that everyone pretty much but the actor who plays. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I really enjoy about these new movies, is that they're bringing the same actors back, actors and actresses.
You don't see that often.
You don't. Most of the time it's a recast or the characters are just written off. So it's cool to see the same actor who played Andy all those years ago return, along with Jennifer Tilly. Then someone who's a spoiler, so we won't mention it at this point, but we'll talk about it a little bit later, even though we were like, who? So
it's honest, like, I should have done my homework and tried to watch all of them before coming to Cult again, because I did need some things happen in the movie, like you just mentioned. I'm just kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, and then after we did a little research, it all started to click.
Definitely feel the same way. And the director promised that this movie would be Chucky on drugs, and I feel like it certainly delivered in that aspect. The whole story in general, I just feel like really went in sort of a unexpected path. I wouldn't really say like it's terribly unique or anything, but
unique for a Chucky movie.
Yeah, it definitely. I thought it was just going to play out sort of like a straightforward sequel, but I'm glad it didn't. It subverted a lot of those tropes and really put you in more of an interesting scenario and stuff that hasn't really been introduced in the Child's Play franchise up until this point. Although some of it's a little bit of a cop-out. We'll get into that in just a little bit.
It leaves you wanting more. Like when
Yeah.
this movie was over, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Come on.
I certainly didn't expect to enjoy this movie as much as I did,
Yeah.
but I'm glad that it did turn out well. Another thing is in Curse of Chucky, it was a pretty serious movie.
Mhm.
It was pretty straightforward. They wanted to bring back that sort of fear that Chucky used to have. And this movie's not really scary at all, although I don't think any of the Child's Play movies at all are scary. But this one really kind of brought back sort of, not like as obnoxious as it was in Bride or Seed of Chucky,
Oh.
but the Chucky humor
Yeah.
has returned in a very small way. Like, he's flipping people off, he's making some silly jokes here and there. Also, like, just the kills are so over the top that they're funny in themselves. So it was really nice to see, like, sort of the funnier side of Chucky return. Not that, I love Curse. Curse is my favorite in the franchise, besides the first one. But,
It was kind of an old meets new,
yeah,
and that was cool.
It was
a good balance.
it was a nice blend.
Mhm.
Another thing I really thought was awesome in the movie was just the puppeteering work. It's truly gotten next level. I feel like, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't think there was either maybe one shot of Chucky CGI, but everything else, he's always a puppet. And I really respect that because I love practical effects. I think if you can do it practically, you should absolutely do it, because CG just never holds up. And even though, yes, you can tell that they are puppets, it is still just that, it's just the fact that they're there and that the actors have something to play off of. I think it gives a better performance rather than just being like, oh, look, Chucky's right there. He's right there.
Yeah, I mean,
Be scared.
Look back to the original Child's Play. I mean, those movies are still looked back on. At least the first one is looked back on very fondly.
Yeah.
And that was all done, with the puppet. Look at, of course, got to bring it up, Star Wars: The Original Trilogy. Those movies are obviously looked back on very fondly.
Yes.
And there was, practical effects in those and puppets and whatnot. So
Practical
again,
effects.
yeah, like you said, if you can go practical, do it.
Which I appreciate it because, again, we're not going to talk. I really don't want to say anything about the story for this movie because pretty much anything besides the trailer I feel like would probably be a gigantic spoiler, which we will, again, talk about spoilers in a moment. But I also really liked the color palette of the movie, sort of the clean white of the insane asylum. It really made, like, the good guy doll pop out when he started showing up because of the stark, like, red and blue.
It made the blood look pretty good too.
Yes.
I thought.
The blood also really stuck out. Really good color palette. I just really like the way this movie was directed. I thought it was shot really well. Really, just like, I'm in shock that I enjoyed this movie so much.
Yeah, I was expecting a shit show for sure. Like, as much as I liked Curse, I kind of almost thought it was going to be a fluke, and then we heard
Right.
about the details about Colt. It's
Yeah.
going to be Shining-esque, and it's going to be Chucky on drugs, and we're just like, oh no, this
We're
is
like-
not going to be good.
Like, gonna get too ambitious, but thankfully that didn't happen. But however, this movie is not perfect. No movie is
Yeah.
perfect, of course.
Basically, it has one giant flaw that isn't a deal breaker for me, but it very well could have been.
Yeah, something that you really can't talk about, but it just really doesn't make sense in the context of the franchise. It sort of feels really cheap, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because you're just kind of like,
And
okay,
and it kind of cheapens the end of this movie
yeah,
because it doesn't make much sense, but I think you can get away with it a little bit and have some little leeway just because the characters are who they are,
yeah,
not mentally stable whatsoever. So
yeah. There's a lot of hallucinations. There's a lot of sort of like really surreal moments throughout the movie, which I really appreciated.
I guess because of that thing that kind of cheapens, like we said, it kind of comes into question a certain characters' motivations at the end, and that you're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, because of the characters are so mentally unstable, you got a little bit of leeway, so I guess you can just chalk it up to them being crazy.
Yeah. So, and then of course, Andy was reintroduced at the end of Curse of Chucky, and now in Cult of Chucky, you sort of expect his storyline to go somewhere, but it really doesn't. So clearly, this movie sets up for a third, sort of in this soft reboot Chucky that we've been going through. Totally sets up for more. But I was really hoping to get a little bit more of a resolution from Andy's storyline, because they kind of tease him at the end of Curse, and then he's just barely in the movie.
Yeah, and he's in a completely different location.
Yeah.
Than he was in the after credit scene of.
Well, I mean, it is 4 years later.
Yeah.
So he could have moved, but yeah, it was just kind of, there's some weird stuff. So overall, I definitely would recommend this movie. Definitely think you should check it out. It's on Netflix. Most people have Netflix, even though it's the rated R version. And there's no end credit scene. The end credit scene is 110% on YouTube right now. I'm sure of it. But Steve, would you recommend Curse? Curse.
I get those two. I get them mixed up all the time too. I gotta watch myself. But yes, I would. I would recommend Curse and Cult.
Yes, of course. If you're on the fence about either of them, which I don't know why you would be, check them both out. So with all that being said, Steve, let's talk about spoilers for a brief moment. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Click away if you don't want to get spoilers. Alright, here we go. Steve, let's talk about our big dislike of the movie. And it's really not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, like we said earlier, it cheapens it.
Well, the next movie's going to have to really tie up these loose ends, or else it's really going to make this movie shitty and make my rating for it go down. So basically, as you guys know, if you've seen the rest of the Child's Play movies, that Chucky's main motivation is to transfer himself from the good guy doll into a human. And in this movie, he learns how to do it. And not just well, it's not that he didn't know how to do it before, it's just that obviously things kept foiling his plans. But he learns how to transfer his consciousness into multiple things at once.
Yeah.
So his one consciousness is in multiple things.
Is in 4 good guy dolls, because there's 3 in the asylum, and then there's 1 at Andy's house, the head.
Right.
So he can transfer himself into 4 different bodies, 4 different good guy dolls, and then on top of that, he transfers himself into Nika's body at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm. And then they fake you out and make you think he's in Malcolm too. Multiple Malcolm, but he's really not.
Yeah, and Multiple Malcolm gets the drill.
Yeah.
Great kill, just the drill coming through the fucking eyeball. So awesome.
Yeah, so at the end of the movie, when Chucky is in Nika's body and she meets up with Tiffany, it's like, well, if Chucky has learned how to transfer his consciousness into multiple people, that he says, voodoofordummies.com.
Yeah.
It was that easy.
Yeah, that's the one thing that really bothered me about it, was their explanation was just like, oh, I just read it online.
Yeah. So why would he even be interested in coming back to possess Nika or Andy?
Well, I mean,
he's a psychopathic killer. I know he wants to finish his jobs, and that would probably be the best explanation. But it's like, if he can just put himself in whoever, then why even bother? Like, just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, that's what we were kind of talking about before we started filming the review. Like, he never wanted to kill Nika. Like, he wanted her to join him because she is his daughter.
True.
So yes. I feel like the only way that she would join them was if he possessed her and sort of takes her along for this ride. And he will be Nika, but obviously, he said that, Nika's going away for a long time. At least that's how I interpreted that. So I really didn't find that particular moment was a problem, like him possessing Nika, but it was just really cheap that all of a sudden he could just spread his consciousness to multiple good guy dolls because he read something about it online.
Yeah, I think that was completely unnecessary because you can still have the same ending of this movie.
Yeah, just without the multiple dolls. But I think they wanted to. It seemed like they wanted to up the ante, up the craziness, sort of the franchise, perhaps.
Yeah, but I just don't think it's needed. It's pretty wild as it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly. I thought that it was going to play out a different way. I thought it was going to be more like a whodunit, like which Chucky is Chucky really in? But then it turns out he's in all of them.
Yeah.
So,
which I thought it would have been cool, like when they introduced the second Chucky, if he's just going back and forth between dolls. That's fine. That would have been kind of a cool touch.
So the end credit scene is sort of like it's introducing another character from the franchise, Kyle from Child's Play 2. I totally forgot about her, so we were kind of scratching our heads at the end. But again, I feel like it's really cool that they're bringing back all of these original characters sort of back into the franchise, because you have to imagine the third movie is going to be wild.
Yeah, and I hope that these characters can get a satisfying ending finally.
Yeah.
You know, with Andy's been dealing with this stuff for how many years, and apparently so has Kyle. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's Cult of Chucky. Lots of things happen in that movie. Steve, if you had to slap a score on it, what would you give it?
If it wasn't for the cheapening of, I guess, Chucky's motivation, and he can just go in everybody's body. If it wasn't for that, I would have given it at least an 8.5 because I really enjoyed it otherwise. But I'm gonna have to give it a 7.
I would agree. I would also give it a 7. It's a good movie. It's a lot of fun. It was definitely better than I thought it was going to be, but at the end of the day, there are some things that are just kind of like, eh. So, what did you think of Cult of Chucky? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up on it, and of course, subscribe if you are new to the channel. We just recently passed 450 subscribers, so thank you so much for that, guys.
Also, where do you think Glenn/Glinda is? Or if he's just been pushed out of the franchise?
Let us know in the comments down below. Of course, I'm Nate. I've been joined with Steven, and you've been watching Out of the Basement. We'll see you next time.